Hi everyone. Today I'm going to continue on with part 3 of this Todoey app. And I should have probably looked more at the Udemy course because I think there's a couple things I want to do before we get into uh, going to a custom data model or or core data. So I actually am going to do a 5A, which is I'm going to just change the variables uh, to match the ones in the course. And then for a 5, I guess this is 5A, this is 5B, and this is 5C. This, I'm actually going to use something called app storage. Um, so in SwiftUI, you can use app storage, which basically stores your variable in user defaults. And I want to show this because there are some nuances with app storage that make this application pretty interesting. So let's get started. So the first thing I want to do is I just want to kind of change some of these variables to match the ones in the course. So this showing add item alert, I think they called it showing alert. And so I'm just going to refactor some of these. Let's call it showing alert. New item, I called it new item. I think in the Udemy course it was called a text field. And so I can kind of keep everything the same. This is the text field that is shows up when you are adding a new item. And then down here, I think the alert says add new Todoey item. And in the text field, this is what you would type in here, basically the default text. I believe it said something like create new item. I also wanted to rename this action. This is adding a new item, but essentially what this does is adds a new item and it also saves it. And so I'm just going to refactor this and I'm going to call it save items. All right. So everything hopefully should still be running. I just renamed a couple variables to try to make it a little bit more like the Udemy course that you've probably seen. I'll also put a little bit of a mark in here, just add a little bit more commenting. And we'll call these the model manipulation methods. Because later on when we get into, I assume when we get to custom data types and storing into core data or anything like that, we will want to also load items. And so I'll put another function here for loading items as well. All right, so I think we're good for right now. What I'd like to do is go ahead and try to show how to do this using what's built into SwiftUI called app storage. So the reason I did it this way is because I'm actually storing an array of strings, and this allows me to define that. But I can also technically app storage. Oh, let me just keep the text up here. It's a property wrapper type that reflects a value from user defaults and invalidates a view on that change, on a change in that value. So it will store into user defaults, and when something changes in this variable, it will invalidate the view and it'll reload. So that's kind of what we want, app storage. And what we want to do here is we want to do I'll just call it, I'll name something else. Here I named it a to-do list array. We'll call it to-do array. And we'll var it as a to-do. I'll just keep the same thing, item array. And we'll just add some defaults in here. The fellowship, I'll just copy from up here. All right. And I'm going to comment this out because I'm trying to use app storage. And then I can also go down here where I do this user defaults, and I'm going to comment this out because we're not using this app storage anymore. All right, so what you'll see here is no exact matches to call initializer. The reason you're getting this, or I'm getting this, is because I'm trying to store an array of strings into app storage. If you look up app storage, you'll see that it will say that you can really only use certain data types, and a string of arrays is not. So what can we do for that? So one thing we can do is go searching, right? So Swift UI searching, we'll do app storage for string of arrays. All right, so let's see what it comes back. How do we store nested arrays in app storage? So we'll go with the first answer on Stack Overflow, and when you do this, you will use this new property wrapper. We're trying to use this property wrapper, and the challenge is here that we actually need to conform array into raw representable. So that's actually we're just actually going to take this, and we will bring it down here. Just put it down as somewhere over here. Drop it in here. So we're going to extend array, and if you take a look at this, it's actually using the JSON decoder and encoder to encode and decode the data, because one of the data types that app storage will take is data. And so basically by taking this item, this raw value, we are actually going to encode it when we need to store it, and then we are going to decode it when we need to decode it using this JSON decoder. And so again, I'm not going to spend too much time on this because using user defaults to store this type of value doesn't make a lot of sense, especially since we're probably going to make a custom data type. But let's just see if this works. So you can see that that error went away. We're now using app storage. I have some initial variables here. And then let's take a look. Let's just make sure that things make sense. We still have the same array item. We still have text items. Everything looks good. So let's run this and see what happens. So we're building it. Successful. It's attaching. And let's just see what happens. So let's add a new item. We're going to call the Hobbit. And let's see what happens if we hit OK. And it adds. All right, so enter the Hobbit. The buttons still work. You can see that it's still reading over here. Let's add another item. We'll call it Lord of the Rings. And there you go. So it looks like we're still using app storage. Let's just make sure. So let's kill the app. So drive it out of here, kill the app. And then we'll go back over here. Let's load up Todoey again. And we have all of our items here, right? So let's take a look at this again. If I were to build this again, it should be reading straight from user defaults. And there you go. I still have all my items. So again, another way of using user defaults, instead of kind of defining it in this way, is using app storage. And app storage is really easy when you are using one of the variable types that it supports, such as a string, Boolean, things like that. A little bit more complicated when you have to do an array of strings. But as you can see here, using Google and Stack Overflow, we were able to extend our array and make it so that we were actually creating a data, for decoding it, we're decoding the element. Over here, we're encoding it into data and returning the result, basically storing it. So there you go. Another way of doing app storage. So this is the end of this video. Next one, actually what we'll do is we'll do a custom data model, and I did watch look at the next part of the Udemy video, and I think they use the NS encoder. So we'll just do the NS encoder. We don't need to do a directory cleanup, but I might do some more commenting. And then finally, we'll get into the meat and potatoes, which is using core data. All right, so stay tuned for the next video. I'm trying to get these out every couple days so that people are able to continue working on this app. All right, Thank you, everyone.